Today, we are sitting down with none other than Courtney Whitmore, the creative powerhouse behind Pizzazzerie. Courtney has built a name for herself as an expert in entertaining, bringing joy and pizzazz to every occasion, whether it is a holiday or an everyday moment. From stunning tables to festive recipe ideas, she has inspired countless hosts and hostesses to create memories worth cherishing. We'll hear all about her roots, her early inspiration from her mom, a Southern tastemaker in her own right, to her career as a celebrated author and entertaining expert. We also talk about her unique approach to celebrating the everyday, how she makes festive days extra special, and what it's like to pass on the traditions of gracious entertaining to her two daughters. We also get a little sneak peek regarding her exciting new book announcement and what is ahead in her world for 2025. So, settle in and join me as we chat with the fabulous Courtney Whitmore. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host and the founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma's Silver. Well, Courtney, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to chat with you. I don't even know if I told you in our initial communications, but I have been a longtime follower, fan of your work since long before I started the Grand Millennial brand. So this is just a really exciting conversation all around. But I'm just going to turn it over to you so that you can introduce yourself and let people know who you are and what you do.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So thrilled. So my name is Courtney Whitmore. I have a lifestyle website called Pizzazzerie, and I have a series of cookbooks. And I just love all things Grand Millennial and tradition and parties and entertaining and food and recipes and all of those things. So that's what I share on a daily basis, and a little of my life sprinkled in with the kids and, all the things. So yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Well, one of the main reasons I started this whole Grand Millennial, the Instagram page, but especially this podcast, is because I really wanted a platform to amplify the importance of maintaining tradition and heritage-inspired living, kind of through the lens of things like design, entertaining, storytelling. And so this was such a good fit. And maybe that's why I gravitated towards your brand really early on, because that's always been something that I've cared about. I did want, just having followed you for a while, I know that your mom this is very much part of her world. And I have to imagine that was something that she then passed down to you, this shared passion for entertaining, for cooking, for having not even necessarily entertaining in the traditional sense, but just like celebrating.
So she really truly taught me everything I know. And I don't think along the way as a child that she thought any of it was, making it in my brain, because I'm sure I was running past the tablescapes on the way to a friend's house. But, it was clearly through osmosis or something, it was working. And I think that's such an important side note, is that our kids may not seem to blink twice at the things we do and the little setups we create for them and those holiday memories, but it's hitting them. And when they're older, they will recreate those things. And you will think, gosh, sometimes they jump in, but sometimes my girls are busy and not really thinking too much about it. But clearly it's getting in there somewhere, because I've turned it into a career. And as a child, I liked it, but my mom definitely pulled out all the stops for the holidays and the tablescapes. And she was working on a tablescape book growing up. So this was well before blogs or the internet even. And she had a big 3-ring binder, and I guess you could call it her Pinterest. So this was where she put all the magazine clippings and all of the things that she fell in love with and ideas she wanted to recreate. And she hired a photographer and shot tables. I mean, it was not unusual to come home from school and see a full out spread with the photographer. And she pitched publishers for years, but she was an unknown. There was no platform for her. They weren't going to take a book unless your name was Martha Stewart, right? So
Yeah.
she always wanted to do a book and kept wanting to. And then I kind of fell into blogging, and that's what I loved blogging about. Like I said, I think it must have been in there somewhere from childhood, because I get out on my own after grad school, and what do? I start throwing parties, setting tables, and who do I call but my mom? And so I kind of found the platform, and she's always had so much style and grace as far as setting tables. And she passed that down to me, and we've just kind of merged together and created a partnership that we've loved doing for 15 years now.
Wow. You did hit on the fact that you started blogging, which I kind of bypassed by mistake. So I would love to hear because if I remember reading somewhere correctly, this is not what you started in. This was not like your initial
Yeah.
career path.
No, and I don't know that for most people it is. I graduated from undergrad and launched right into grad school. I think we were in a recession, did not know what I wanted to do. So I just stayed in school and got a master's in organizational leadership at Vanderbilt. And then after that, still did not know what I wanted to do. So I stayed on campus and worked as an assistant director at the Vanderbilt Career Center, helping undergrads find their careers. Meanwhile, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I love kind of the personality tests and the career path type thing. So I was happy for a little bit, but I was finally on my own and had a townhome that had a dining room. And so I'd acquired my first dining room table that was worthy, large enough to really set a table. And so I'd go to work and come home, and I always wanted to work for myself. And I would come home and start this blog. This was when blogs were really in their infancy. And so there were a couple conferences about blogging. I went to one of those. There was no Instagram, there was no Pinterest, there was Twitter and Facebook, and there were a handful of bloggers out there. And so I was back there coding my website. This is before you could look up how to do it easily. You had to kind of figure it out, but I fumbled my way through it and got a logo on Etsy and figured out how to buy a URL. And pizzazzerie was a word that it's a strange word, but the word pizzazz and patisserie, like the French word, I just loved sweet little desserts and adding pizzazz. And so at 24, it all sounded great. And I had no idea I would still be doing this. But so blogging is truly my passion. And then the social media landscape is just an ever changing one. But the blog is my, bread and butter and my brand. And it's what stays true. But I love sharing it on all of the new social media platforms. But yes.
You also have two books with a third on the way. Oh,
Yeah,
five.
I do. There was several early on in my late 20s that I should talk about them more, and I don't. There was Push Up Pops, Candy Making for Kids, a book on frostings, which is all things frosting, and then Pizzazzerie Entertain in Style with the hot pink cover with the drink on it that a lot of people might recognize that one or remember it being pink. And then the Southern Entertainer's Cookbook, and then a new one on the way.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And I'll just preface this by saying we'll make sure to link all of these in the show notes too. How did you kind of go from the blog to wanting to publish?
Yeah, it kind of fell in my lap. I mean, obviously, I had my mom still wanting to publish books. I remember she wanted to do a Christmas book, and this was my first year of blogging. And I remember thinking, like, well, I don't know how to help you there because I was just figuring out my own platform. But I created her a Shutterfly book with all of the Christmas ideas that she'd saved for decades at this point. So she still has it. So the pages are falling out now, but so she could have kind of her Christmas book. But I was doing a giveaway with a publisher for a wedding book by Tara Gerard called Southern Weddings on my blog. This is back in the more giveaway era of things. This was, oh goodness, 2011, 2010. And in communication with the publisher, they said, "Hey, we've been wanting to do a book on push-up pops. Would you author it for us?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I just got started with all of this, but I looked into it, thought a lot about it, and then said yes. And they've been my publisher ever since. And so that's kind of how it fell in my lap. And then a few books later, I finally said, can I do a big party book? Please, please, please. And so that's how those last two were created. And it's been a wonderful experience. So it's kind of a backwards way to end up publishing, but it's been truly a wonderful thing to make my mom's dreams come true and my own. It's certainly my dream as well. I'm definitely in the right career path for me. And I can go down my career counselor talk, but I could talk for hours about finding something that you love and finding your passion. And if you're not doing what you love, if it's not getting you up and out of that bed on Monday morning, then find what will. But yes, I digress into former career
Oh, I
counselor
love
days.
that.
I think people should end up where they're supposed to be. And sometimes it takes a little bit and you try things out and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes it's perfect and sometimes it's not. And different stages of life. Something you love at 25 you may not love at 40. So I'm grateful that my kind of quote job has certainly changed from what it looked like at 25, but the elements are still there of what I love. It just is different platforms and different things, but the main sense of it has stayed the same, and I love it. So
How would you differentiate? I'm just kind of going back to your two most recent books. How would you differentiate the advice, the focus of each?
entertaining style, gosh, I think it's for that girl that just wants to have friends over, looks for a reason to celebrate. There's party ideas throughout the year in there that are a little unusual. There's Christmas and there's things like that, but there's some other funky ones in there that I think you just need a reason to grab your girlfriends and celebrate. So maybe learning how to set a table, learning those fun and funky different styles, playing with colors, some unique food ideas that match each party. So I feel like it's just in your party era for sure. And then I think that last book, Southern Entertainer's Cookbook, is more of a Bible for those classic heirloom recipes that you can pull out for almost any occasion. And it's a little less tablescape. There's a few in there, but it's a little more of my favorite Southern entertaining. I mean, it's titled correctly, Southern Entertaining Cookbook. It truly is the kind of book you'll grab over and over again when you need a recipe. And there's tons of recipes in that entertaining style book. It's just more divided up into the parties and really walks you through how to throw those parties.
They're both very, like you said, the first, I called it like themes, which I
Yes, yes,
love because I think that especially as a former event planner, I live for a theme. I
yes,
think they add so much fun. And I love when the menu, when you can take something and it's just very, like if you're not someone who is familiar with entertaining, I think you could pull something from it as a beginner and as someone who does it all the time. And then the
absolutely.
Southern Entertaining, there were some good recipes in there.
Thank you.
Do you pull from, going back to tradition, do you pull from like your childhood and creating some of those recipes and menus? Like how are you deciding what goes into some of those?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, my mother and that one took a year to write. We immediately knew a good chunk of those recipes right out the gate. We knew I mean, she pulls from her old, worn out recipe cards of the family recipes that she had passed down to her or that she's learned from, gosh, her roommate in college, who's my godmother. Her mom taught her a few different recipe ideas. So from friends and family that she's tweaked and changed and or kept the same on a few. I'm thinking of a cheese wafer in that last book, and it definitely was one of her favorites passed down from a family member. And so I think it's looking at some of those that we knew would make it in eventually, and then it's looking where are we lacking? Is there something that we really think we should round it out with? So we did some recipe development for that book, but not a ton because frankly they are the recipes we cook from all year long. They just weren't packaged in that book that I really dreamed of. So that book, oh my gosh, it holds a special place in my heart. So it was what took a year was probably just compiling it all and styling it and photographing it and stuff like that. But yeah, we're pulling straight from our favorite family recipes.
I don't know how much you can talk about with this, but understanding you're writing another that you said is Christmas
It is Christmas. I'm
focus.
so excited.
Okay.
It is. Yes. And this kind of goes back to that. I mean, I remember sitting in this townhome in this little office creating that Shutterfly book for my mom for Christmas. And it will look different than that book. That one obviously was just kind of a little compilation of all the little notes she had that she wanted in a Christmas book, but we will bring that to life and then some. And we're so excited. And it's just going to be that book that's perfect to gift with a little Christmas happy or open and flip to the pages and throw a wonderful Christmas party. Or if you need a Christmas recipe, it'll be in there. So we're really excited. I started throwing gingerbread house tea parties for my daughter, and my mom hosted them for me. And I mean, if you ask anyone who has known my mom in all of the cities that we have lived in, they'll say, "Oh, I still have a little gingerbread house that she gave me from 10 years ago in a bag in my Christmas bin." And it's what she's known for. It's what I have started throwing for my daughter. And we just hosted our ninth annual. And so that party really, I think, spearheaded this Christmas book as people are coming to me by the dozens saying, "How do you do this? How do you do this for that party?" And there's a lot on the blog, but there will be more in the book. And we're excited about it.
I have so loved watching you share these over the years. I don't know that I was there for the first couple, but I mean, it has been at least your oldest daughter was pretty little. So it's been many
Yes.
years. And I've grown to look forward to seeing them and just seeing how, because they're the same concept as per
Hmm.
tradition, but
Yep.
you do, it's a little different every year and the way that you do it. Are
Yeah.
you finding that your girls are now getting more invested in that with you? Because that's such a fun event.
Yes.
Like I can't imagine that they don't have the best
Yeah.
time.
They do. And Blakely, we started when she was 2, and
Wow.
Blakely this year for the first year was my helper for Ivy and her friends. And we may hop back to more Blakely's age in the future, but this year we were prepping to shoot it, and so we had a lot of little tiny ones, Ivy's age, which is she's my second daughter and she's 4. So we had a lot of 3 and 4 year old little girls, and Blakely said, can I help? And so she's picked up the ropes. She's had 9 years to practice. So she was helping them put the icing on and using the little decorating tubes and kind of teaching them the ways. So I love seeing that in her. I love watching that little hostess come out. So she definitely tapped into it earlier than I did. Again, my mom's like, I didn't think you even were interested in any of this, but clearly I was, and it kind of fell to apple did not fall far. So Blakely's really enjoyed, and she has opinions on her birthday parties now and things like that, which for the most part I love to hear.
Does your mom stay pretty involved then in a lot of that as well?
Oh, 100%. So even this Christmas book, I probably am calling her 6 times a day, and I'm down at her house every other day. We have a meeting tomorrow at her house. So I run every idea by her, and she calls and says, all right, what do you think of this? And what do you think of this? And so it's just, we don't have a food stylist or a prop stylist for the books. It's just us. So 2 woman show. So yes, we're bouncing ideas. And I would say she's even a better crafter and stylist than I am. I like to come in and kind of see the forest, but she can work in the trees, and so we make a good
Mhm.
team in that respect.
You mentioned popping over to her house. You recently came back to Charleston. I mean, tell me about that decision and just like what it means to kind of be home.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So I lived here when I was little up until about Blakely's age, and then we lived in Raleigh, North Carolina before I went to college and stayed in Nashville for 20 years, almost 20 years. So I always knew I wanted to get back, and so did my mom. She moved to Nashville when I was pregnant with my first, but then, we just were trying to figure it out, and do we go and when do we go? And then COVID hit. And then I remember thinking, well, if we're going to go, we need to go before I have a child in late middle or high school. I would love to move before. I'd hate to move a child in high school if I didn't have to, right? So for a job. And we just said, let's do it. And my husband fell in love with Charleston the first time he saw it. So he was spearheading it right alongside me. And it made all the hard parts about a move a lot easier when you know where you're going. And Charleston always will have my heart. It's where you just drive around and you just feel happy when you know where you're in the spot you're supposed to be. And Charleston has changed a lot, but the historic district is where I grew up, and it largely looks the same little corner market where I would go buy candy for using report card and lemonade stand money. And then it's still there and it looks exactly the same. And the place where my mom would take me to get ice cream after I'd have to get a shot, it's there, called Pitt Street Pharmacy. And it has the same red leather covered stools. Like, it's wild.
Wow.
And so I just feel like Charleston truly values tradition. And yes, a lot is changing, but gosh, it is just a mecca of history and tradition. So I think it's a good fit, and it's wonderful to be back.
What recommendations do you have for people who are, because obviously it's a big travel city as well, big tourist population. What recommendations do you have for people who are heading there for the first time? Like, what are your must sees when people are visiting?
Yes. So this is coming probably from a background of having grown up here as a child, but get on foot and start walking that historic district. It is the most charming. You just feel like you're in a movie. Start in that Rainbow Row down there by White Point Gardens, where the cannons are. Walk up and down the streets. You will see more on foot, just peeking into the little garden fences and the little gates and the houses. It's incredible. Your phone camera will be loaded with photos and inspiration, especially if you love gardening and architecture. But pop into the Exchange building for one of the dungeon tours. It's like about a 30-minute historical tour, which I think is great if you have kids. So it's not too long, but you get a little taste of Charleston's history, which I think is so important. Head over to the market and walk up and down there. And then King Street shopping is fabulous. I think popping over to Mount Pleasant to see Shem Creek, which is a wonderful area with a lot of restaurants, and you're bound to see dolphins, and pop over to Sullivan's Island to see the beach. Oh gosh, I could go on and on, but my number one would be walk Rainbow Row, walk Trad and Meeting, walk those downtown historic streets, because they're truly magical. I mean, it's those homes are so beautiful.
Because you're back in this kind of space that you have your own childhood roots in, are there traditions you're rebuilding or reintroducing or starting anew with your children that are place-based?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wrote a piece for the Post and Courier, which is Charleston's newspaper, when I moved here, and I talked a little bit about how I remember on Thanksgiving afternoon and sometimes Christmas afternoon, but definitely Thanksgiving when there wasn't really much else to do after we'd eaten, my family would head over to Sullivan's and it was chilly, but we would take the dog and run on the beach. And so I think adding those elements in and then just having an appreciation for the history and the architecture and everything down here. I think I always am trying to take them down there. So I grew up down there, but we're over in Mount Pleasant now. So taking the girls down there a lot, they'll stay at my mom's here and there and just letting them be able to walk to those same shops and enjoy those same things. I also adore the North Carolina mountains. And so I went to a camp for, I think, over a decade now, that when I was a child up there. So I'm sending Blakely and we'll send Ivy because I think it's neat that Charleston has just about a 4 or 5 hour drive to the mountains. And so I think that's a place-based tradition that's not Charleston focused, but it's certainly from my childhood that I'm carrying on. But gosh, Charleston is just so full of so many memories. I was not in the Mount Pleasant area as a child. I was downtown, but just getting the girls downtown as much as possible. Taking next year, I want to take them to the Nutcracker, which my mom took me, and just things like that, letting them see the same shops and little things that I did as a child.
I love that. One of the things that I've enjoyed following along with is that, particularly during these, what I kind of call like the gray months, right? After the highs of the holiday season, things kind of dwindle and some of that festivity and excitement dissipates. What you do so well is like you just keep the momentum going year round. You're making even, like snacks that look,
Right.
fun and festive and just add a little extra dash of happy to a day. So, are there things that you're doing intentionally to maintain that momentum or things that you recommend people turn to if they are feeling a little gray?
Oh gosh, it's easy to feel gray these times, in the January, February months. Yeah, I probably start the holiday fun a little earlier in the holiday season than most. So I'm starting to gear up for Valentine's Day. Of course, my poor children will be so confused when I'm pulling out a Christmas tree here soon for a Christmas book shoot, but that's just the life they have to lead. But when you plan a really big trip, you know how the anticipation is almost as much fun as the trip. And so I think I probably am just the biggest holiday hype woman alive. So I'll tell my 4 year old it's easy to hype her up. So I'll say like, oh my gosh, Valentine's is coming soon. Like, I wonder what we're going to do for it, or the Easter Bunny is coming soon. What's going to be at our Easter? I think I just love to have a little something out there for them to look forward to because I think it makes their day to day that looks a little bit teen. Every day looks a little bit of the same in January. Go to school or go to preschool, come home. I try to always have them excited about the next thing. And sometimes it's even, I mean, I have two girls. They're not that into football, but boy, I practiced my hype woman skills with Vanderbilt football this year. And I'm not even like a huge college sports fan, but I love a good reason to get hyped up. And so when Vanderbilt football was doing well in the fall, I had Blakely in there being like, well, now we need to make a cookie cake for Vanderbilt. And the next week we did a Vanderbilt brownies. And it's what can I find to get them? And then Blakely's watching college football now. And so I think what can I get them hyped up about? And it usually is going to involve some sort of baking to do it. Both my children love to be in the kitchen, which I have to take a huge deep breath and as a very type A person and just sort of realize the memories we're making. But I think kind of hyping them up about all the things. My mom used to do that. She would say, 2 more weeks till Valentine's Day or one more week. It just adds to the excitement. And it's just Valentine's Day. There's not that much that goes on the actual day. I mean, I'll put a few little treats at their place setting. I will put a tablecloth and make a cozy homemade meal a little more exciting, some flowers from Trader Joe's here and there. So it's nothing revolutionary. I think I just talk about it a little more before and just build that excitement because we all do it for Christmas, but we don't tend to do it for Super Bowl, or Valentine's Day or, St. Patrick's Day. But I don't know. I just get hyped over the holidays.
I do the same thing. And again, maybe that's just like the brain, of more
It,
like
it
the
could be
creative,
there.
like the creative event planner.
Yeah.
I give me anything and I will find a reason to have a
Yeah.
party. Like
Yeah.
the sun could be shining the first warm day of spring, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to have people over. So
Yeah. Like I
I
can,
am very much like all the celebration, but it can be hard when you have that kind of downward energy after the
mhm.
holidays, and your house is like sad and naked, and it just feels different. So it's always fun to find reasons to, or and
Yes.
honestly, your page is, I say your page, but your blog, your Instagram are lovely reminders, because I think sometimes as we get older, we need reminders. So just the same way you're saying, you're doing for your girls that your mom did for you of, hey, it's okay to be excited. We can be excited about these things and do little tiny things like making brownies.
Yes, because January can be a downer. So just finding any reason
Yeah.
to cut out snowflakes, even if you don't live, I mean, live in Charleston, we're not going to see snow. It'll be a while. It does not happen often. So, but that doesn't mean they can't grab white paper and start cutting out snowflakes. And, I'm a big fan of maybe this is because I have picky eaters, but I'm a big fan of the meal ideas where it's like a big board in the middle. And I like to create charcuterie boards, but I can't have a party like every night.
Yeah.
And so that it lets me feel like I get to set a party table, so to speak. But my kids like it because they can kind of reach over and build their own fajita or, maybe it's the soup toppings. If I build it for them and I take their plate to them, it's okay. But if I, give them the base, whatever, if it's a taco or a basic soup, and then I have all of the toppings on just a basic wooden board, let me craft it all together, which fulfills my, desire for styling and cute things like that. But it also lets them feel like they have some control. It just feels like a fun dinner and not just dinner. And so trying to make those dinners, especially in January when it's cold outside, you just want cozy soups or warm, comforting meals, just make a big board, go grab one off Amazon and I think I have ideas like we did cheeseburger bowl. So just set a big board with all of the toppings. It just seems more exciting. It just seems like a party, even if it's for two or four or three or whatever your small family is, it doesn't matter. So just makes it more exciting. And the kids are being more likely to eat it, which is 10 out of 10.
Don't have children yet, but my lots of I have 9 nieces and nephews. So I
Perfect.
always, my one nephew was here a lot, and it was always interesting when I gave him just free will to
Yeah.
to do things like that. It was really interesting to just see what he reached for. If I would tell him like we're gonna have veggies at lunch now, it was kind of a fight, but the kid loves a pepper. I mean, he
Yeah.
would just
Give
eat
them.
peppers all the time if I just had them out, didn't force it on him. So I love to
Yeah.
see just what they go for of their own accord.
It's so true. And I did a rainbow board. It was kind of a rainbow board. It was actually for the Olympics, but then I kind of reconfigured it for dinner that night into like a rainbow board with all the fruits and vegetables of each color. And you would have thought that I was like mom of the year that night. Like I'd never seen the kids get, I was like, this is all it took. And so that's when I started implementing more of the boards for dinner. If you can turn it into a board, just do it because it just makes things feel festive. The kids are more excited, so the household's happier, mom's happier or anybody's happier. It's just wonderful. So that's my little trick in January is turn dinner into a board.
I love it. I love it. Now, you're hitting on something important, which is presentation, which obviously you do wonderfully.
Thank you.
What baseline entertaining presentation tips do you refer to time and time again when you're hosting or entertaining?
Mom and I are mid styling for this Christmas book. So I'm just going to pull from like literally what we were discussing earlier today. So we usually start with tablecloth. Sometimes we don't have one, but that's usually the first thing I go hunting for because it kind of sets my color palette. And I tend to have a tight color palette. So I'm usually like two colors or maybe three, unless it's a spring theme. And then I love all the colors. I think tablecloth first. And then I head for, am I doing this more elevated? In which case I'm pulling out all the silver trays that I own because anything can look better in silver. Even candies for a gingerbread house party, put them on little silver trays, put them in little silver bowls. They're not going to break when they flip them over. It makes things feel fancy and it gives you an excuse to use grandma silvers. Then I'll head for candles and flowers. So it's all those accessories. It's how can I elevate this experience? And those are my four things. It's like what vessels, usually silver, tablecloths, candles, and are there going to be florals used? The plates actually end up being the last thing I pull together for a tablescape. But then I love all the little details too. Like, can I add calligraphy place cards? Would that help it? If I have a sort of boring white plate, how can I put a fun favor in the middle? And ribbon, unless it's something specifically for boys and I don't want it too girly, there's always ribbon involved. If I can, I mean, I think the bows are quite a trend now, but I don't know that that bows were ever not a trend for me. I think I've just loved them. So I add a big bow on top of gingerbread houses. Like it's not done until it has its bow on the top. So adding a bow around a cloth napkin if you don't have a napkin ring, So if I walk into Michael's or Hobby Lobby, the first place I head is the ribbon aisle. Ribbon, tapered candles, a few silver trays. If you don't have any passed down, just visit an estate sale or an antique. You will find them. People are just getting rid of them, which is sad, but also okay for me if I could pick up a few more. So those are my favorite go-to things just to elevate a space. And then it's just kind of once you do a few parties and you set a few tables, you're like, this is kind of a rinse and repeat, except that it's still so fun every time. And you fall into your rhythm and your groove.
Hobby Lobby hates to see you coming.
I hate to see these numbers because I'll find a coupon
I
and
love
I'll
it.
wait. If you wait a week, they'll put all their ribbon on. I think it's 40%. So if you see it not on sale, you just hold tight and go
This
back. And there is a pink and white gingham check ribbon. It's like a wide. It might be a 2.5 inch that I put on top of a lot of the houses. You'll see that ribbon a lot in the gingerbread house tea party. Anyway, when I went, I found a roll at Hobby Lobby and then I pulled that ID number and said, like, I need 10 rolls of this. I'm never going to be able to find that many at Hobby Lobby. And I only have one Hobby Lobby. So just go on their website. This is not revolutionary, except I just never thought to shop their website, but go on there and you can buy like just bulk of the ribbon you want. But they also do the coupon online whenever it's, coupon week for ribbons. So, or on sale week for ribbons and just
Oh.
buy, you love a certain red at Christmas because reds can be funny, like too orangey or too this. And
Yes.
just go buy a ton of it. Just hoard what you love, and then you don't have to hunt for it anymore. Do it.
That is my 2025 mantra now. Hoard what you
Hoard
love.
the ribbon. Do it.
I
I
love
mean,
it.
I used to have to chase certain ribbons. I'd be like, gosh, I remember that one. And I'm like, now if I find something I love, it's a little bit like clothes. You like buy it in
Yeah.
every color. If you love, Hobby Lobby specifically has great gingham and multiple size checks. But if you love something, Nashville Wraps, by the way, also has a great stripe ribbon and paper mart. Just shooting all my ribbon sources out you. But just buy what you love because there's nothing worse than being like, I just need that one thing to finish this whole table and you run out or you get all the way around and you don't have enough yardage. But I think I use ribbons more on a table than I do for wrapping gifts. So it just adds a little touch of fun.
Wrapping gifts. That is actually I'm so bad at it. I'm so creative in so many ways. But when it comes to a gift, they look like a child wrapped them. They're really bad.
Same. I'm
And
so bad at it.
never enough ribbon. That is my downfall. Like I never have I don't know why I think I need less, but it's never enough. And then I'm out and then there's like a whole half of back to your order more than you think you'll need. I get like maybe half finished with ribbon and then the rest are like tucked under.
I'm the same
Those are the
way. I'm
hide
so
gifts.
bad. I'm so bad. Yeah, at Christmas this year we had some that didn't have ribbons. I just put them underneath. I'm just so bad at wrapping gifts. I can't wrap it nicely. It's like I don't have the patience for it. So I asked my husband to wrap them because he turns it into like a 30-minute ordeal on each box,
Yes.
which is fine if he wants to. I mean, it's perfect. And then usually I'll ask my mom if she'll add a big bow. She can create with this kind of like this, I call it our birthday party ribbon, but it's like the kind that you can tear down and create
Oh, like the
curls with it.
curling ribbon. Yeah, I know what you're
But
talking
it's not the thin kind, like 3 inch or 2 inch. And so then you can do a big bow and then take the tails and separate them out and do more. All I know is I might have a video on it. I should film her doing this because I'm like, can you add a bow to this? And at 40 years old, I should probably figure out how to do this. But yes, I'm very bad at wrapping gifts. So
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. That is not my strength.
No, and that's funny. My husband is the gift wrap guy too.
Yep.
I was also going to ask you kind of along the lines of again, entertaining food, because obviously
Yeah.
this is your wheelhouse, right? So what
Yeah.
kinds of things, especially this time of the year, because I feel like the holiday season, it's really easy to put a menu together because there are just like go-tos that people expect. What kinds of
Yep.
things do you like to serve in these later winter months?
I'm a big chili person, as a lot of people are, and I know it's kind of cliche chili, but I just love it. I love soups. I love the cozy meals like that with the toppings board, like we talked about earlier. Big roasts and things like that, like a Mississippi pot roast and some of those classic Southern, dishes like that. Although again, I have two small children that are picky, so sometimes I don't get to venture too far in the culinary creative world, at least not with entrees. With desserts, they're all about it. But yeah, I think just leaning into the cozy. Gosh, I always play. This is so random, but I'm always playing with puff pastry, and I really love it in the winter because although I'm using it mostly for appetizers, I'll have leftovers and I'll pop in whether it's ham and cheese or sliced rotisserie chicken and Parmesan and roll up anything in puff pastry. And it is amazing and just feels like a cozy, savory tart. And you're like, you can just pretend you're Julia Child and turn on the Nancy Myers playlist on Spotify and just wrap anything in puff pastry. Like, I don't have a lot of patience for, like, I've never made sourdough. Like, I don't understand. I don't need anything alive in the house that I have to take care of other than my children. I'm like, I can't do the sourdough thing. I don't have it in me. But give me a roll of puff pastry and it flakes up and you just feel super fancy. And you feel like you went to a French bakery and grabbed some savory treat. And so it's like I'm always playing with puff pastry. And so that's why I mentioned that because I just think it makes any meal a little fancier, almost like little beef Wellington bites. I have a recipe for those, but you could kind of create a version of that just for dinner and it just feels fancy and different, except it's super easy and also affordable.
This is super random, but you were talking earlier about, like silver, and are there things that you have that are like antiques, vintage, that you love to pull out or that you would encourage people to use in creative ways? Because I think so many of us get things that are either passed down. Of course, I love, Grandma Silver really developed out of the idea of this is the community that would appreciate that, right? So
Sure.
is that something that you venture into,
Yes.
like using old pieces?
100%. So I have, gosh, I've tried to label it since the move, like each dish set and where it's from. So, this grandmother's, I've kind of been the one to inherit all the dishes, or at least I've raised my hand when no one else did. So, this grandmother's dish set, or my mom's Christmas china, or this, we call it her King Street china set, because we have these little labels to kind of trigger our memory of what's in that bin. And we have many bins of silver. Of course, I'd still keep looking. So mom uses like these Paul Revere bowls. She'll use them for everything, like the candy at the gingerbread party. But she also has a lot of Waterford, and those are pieces I love. So they're champagne coupes, but we'll use them. I don't know that I've ever even used it for champagne, not once. I mean, I have too many champagne glasses, but I don't know that we've used the Waterford ones for champagne. We'll use them for a fruit cup or for candy for the gingerbread house party also, or just anything. So using them and using the basic classic antique pieces that might be passed down from you in new and unique ways. But I would say the silver trays, all the Waterford, I have a lot of little antique vases I'll pull, little silver vases. Those are the things that I'm using all the time. And if you look at my tablescapes, you'll start to see these things again and again. You're like, oh, I've seen that before because I'm not buying different for each shoot. I'm reusing 90% of what I have just in different ways. I try to at least. Of course, I do succumb to the awesome marketing that, all of the places do. But and I have some new pieces too that I want to pass to the girls. But for the most part, I mean, this Christmas I thought, what Christmas china? And I went downstairs and if my mom had a couple sets and I grabbed my favorite and a Nico set and it was fine. So it was, I think, trying to use all of those pieces. But when I head into an estate sale, I'm usually headed for silver or Waterford just because it's classic to me. It's what I love. So yeah.
I love that. And I also love and just want to kind of reiterate that you mentioned that you're not buying new items for every,
Mhm.
in your case, potentially a styled shoot or
Mhm.
for the blog, but any event. I think that's so important because I think so many of us are, firstly, we're just pushed new products constantly. And I think we're
Mhm.
also in this very inaccurate misconception that in order to entertain, it has to be super, super brand new every time, or that like we can't
Yes.
reuse pieces, or that people will be
Mhm.
bored. And I love that you are repurposing and you're doing it creatively. I don't think most people are able to look at your page or your blog and say, oh, there she goes using the Waterford again. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I highly encourage someone to hit pizzazzerie.com and then I think you have to hit celebrations and then hit all tablescapes and start looking at the like thumbnail pictures of them. You're going to see the same glassware. You're going to see the same things. I would say tablecloths change the most. And I'm always picking up yards of fabric to use as tablecloths and just do like a no-sew hem tape on the edges. And so those probably change the most, although you'll see some repeaters that I love. Napkins I'll end up buying too many of. That's my downfall. But as far as the china and the trays and the glassware, it's rare I'm buying. If you have a few great sets or a few great antique sets, there's some that I only have seven in, and I'll just set the table of eight and somebody gets a different one and I just make that person me. It doesn't matter if you have to have the full set. Sometimes at an estate sale, you'll get, seven of something. Buy it if you love it. You can make it work. And I think just not needing to spend a fortune on something. I've never used a florist for any of my photo shoots, books or otherwise. Why would I do that when I can go to Trader Joe's and pick up? I will go to a wholesale florist on occasion. If I need a particular color, I'll go there. And we had a great one in Nashville called Import Flowers, if you're local to Nashville. But in Charleston, Hort's Flowers is great too. But I've had luck just going to Trader Joe's. And then one tip I love, and I think we've done, I'll tell my mom, like, go get the Nandina, and we know what we mean. Over the last decade, Nandina is it's just an evergreen bush we have in our yards, but it produces the most wonderful clippings. We'll also use fern in the summer, but head out into your yard, even if you just have like a little porch, plant some ferns in the summer. And we have to like stop ourselves from clipping it down to, bald. So we'll clip little greenery and add it to, we'll strip a lot of the greenery off the Trader Joe's flowers and then add our own greenery with Nandina or fern. It just looks better. Some of the leaves on the Trader Joe's flowers will just look like they've had a day or two, and for some reason, kind of stripping those down and add tucking in your own greenery just takes it over the top. And less is more in most ways. But yeah, don't be afraid of designing your own flowers. Like you can do that. Don't spend a fortune on a party, save it for the food or the wine, but you can totally pull it off, especially with candles too. Oh my gosh, so affordable. And they add such a, boost to it, the ambiance of a table.
Again, are touching on something that I was curious about, which is where to invest your energy, the things that make the biggest impact for folks. So obviously you love a tablescape, which I
Sure.
think always helps to set the tone too for the event.
Right.
What elements is it food presentation that
It,
you are prioritizing?
yes, I would say it's more the first, when I plan a party, let's say I'm a month out, the first 2 weeks is going to be the table because I obviously I'm thinking about food, but I can't do anything about it yet. So the first, week or so, I'll set the table up and tweak it, walk by it and go, wait, I don't like that. Wait, I like this. But the most bang for my buck is if you're wanting to put a lot of energy in, is just lots of taper candle holders and just a lot of drama. Add a bow around them, let the streamers hit the table. I love that look. As you get closer, yes, I would say food ends up being where I'm spending most of my energy, although right out the gate, it's the table. Just because I need that foundation. It like gets the creative juices flowing. But yeah, I think food and making sure that when people come in, have a drink ready for them, have a flow to the home so they kind of don't feel awkward and do everything you can in advance because a hurried hostess will make everyone else feel anxious too. They're going to take on your energy as soon as they walk in the house. So be relaxed, do everything you can in advance, take a deep breath, 15 minutes before, and so that when they walk in, it doesn't look like you've had to do too much. Although I also recently heard someone saying, forget it had a name. It was like, let them come in and give them a task because sometimes that'll put people at ease. Like, hey, could you grab those and help me? And I do think there's some value to that. My mom was definitely the old school, like, don't bring anything. Can I bring something? No, don't bring anything. Don't show up with anything that I have to plate and put on this table. I've already got it all. And when you walked in, it was just party time. But I think this generation is a little more casual and you can let friends bring over something or help, but just in a relaxed way by the time the first door is opened and get all those jitters out, do all the little last minute things so you can stay relaxed and your guests will.
You just kind of made me think about something, and I could be very off base here, so let me know. But you start with your table most of the time because you like that sparks that probably one, the excitement as someone who's more
Mhm.
anticipatory. It gets you excited about the event, and then you kind of segue to food. But understanding you do a lot as a cookbook author, are the roles reversed? Like, are you starting with the presentation and then establishing the menu from there for like the menus or the food that you're looking to share recipes for? Or is
Yes.
it flipped?
No, I would say I start with what it'll look like first. So usually for a party, I'm not thinking, oh, now I do want it to be delicious. Let me just put this disclaimer. I do want it to taste good. But usually, if it's something for a party, I am thinking more, I want it to look good. That's my first thing. And I know that sounds crazy because most people are going to say, I don't care what it looks like as long as it tastes delicious. I'm reversed. I still want it to taste good. Do not get me wrong, but I want it to look pretty on a platter. How can I take and I'm up for the challenge. Like if I need to style a like a roast or turn something in, something that's not necessarily pretty. I love to make it pretty. I worked for a shrimp company years ago. It's tricky to make that look good, but I love that challenge. And so, how do I take delicious food? My first thought is, I really want to use that platter. What appetizer can I make that could look good on that platter? And then, obviously, like I said, it needs to taste wonderful. But I like to think about, am I going to want to have where they walk up and serve themselves? Do I want past hors d'oeuvres? Do I want to use these platters or do I, want it to be a seated thing? And I kind of like the look of I kind of picture like the platters going around and then I think of what food will go on it rather than start with the food. I think I might be the only person that does that. But I think I would say I'm part food stylist, but in my past life, I was probably only a food stylist. So that's where I have my fun, styling the food. But of
Yes.
course, I want it to taste good.
Coming from an event planning background, I think a lot of catering folks have to go in
Mm.
with that mentality too, because we eat with our eyes first, right? Like I think
Yes.
presentation is everything, especially when you're at an event. Of course, I did like, milestone events, so they were a little more
Sure.
dramatic. But if you're thinking about even hosting people in your home, you can still do something that looks beautiful and still tastes great. But I think that presentation does elevate it so well.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
especially in like our culture now, I think it was probably, we have so many appliances that make our food great, but aren't aesthetically pleasing. Like I've never made anything gorgeous. Like you can't just open your crock pot and be like, wow, what a stunner. Like it just
No,
doesn't
no.
work like that. You have to take a little extra step.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But some of the best dishes come out of that crock pot or the food processor or the
Yeah.
blender. And so, like, let me just think, like when I go to a party, I feel like a lot of people will make a version of like a salsa dip that has like black beans and corn and tomatoes and things like that. And they'll put it in a bowl, which is totally okay. But if you wanted to take it up a notch, which is just my favorite thing to do, is how do I take something that's great to serve, but how do I make it look good in like 2 minutes or less because I'm busy like everybody else? Grab a little bit of cilantro, tuck it in a little corner, grab a lime, slice it, tuck the lime slice there, slice a little extra tomato and sprinkle it on top. So you're just looking for those extra things that make it feel like you're at a restaurant or you're somewhere fancy. Now you don't always need to do this if your best friend's just wandering over, who cares? But if you love this art of entertaining, then you are always looking for ways to kind of elevate the salsa. So, whether it's the cilantro sprig or the lime on that dish or something else on another, it's how can you take a couple minutes and what extra little one ingredient could you grab at the grocery store or grow in an herb garden? I have an herb pot that is like my go-to. That thing is earning its keep at my house. And so I'm always cutting sprigs of thyme or rosemary. I have pots of rosemary. And part of that is because I'm working on a Christmas book, so I need the rosemary. But when you see this book, there will be rosemary in almost every shot. So I'll sugar it, I'll tuck it in, I'll add a cinnamon stick to the side of something. So it's those little things that make it just feel more elevated, but yet you can still make the dip you really love or whatever. Just add the garnishing, just do
Yeah.
it, just do the little extra. It takes like 30 seconds.
It does make such a difference. And I love nothing more than, my husband. I married into a football family. I don't come from a
Yeah.
football family, but I've grown to love it. And, we're thinking about, well, I am thinking about because I am also anticipatory. I'm like, ooh, Super Bowl. Like, what could I,
Yes.
I love football foods, game day foods are not cute.
No,
Like,
they're not cute.
like sausage dip, sliders. I mean,
No,
sliders are pretty cute, but I
but
mean,
they're all brown.
yeah, but it's like a sea of beige. It's
Yeah,
intense. And so I am always thinking about like, okay, like those things are great. I don't want to do away. Like I don't want kale on game day. I still want the sausage dip, but like how do we
exactly.
change the way we are experiencing it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, a green rollout, the green field, rollout. I'm not a football. I kind of know
Turf.
Vanderbilt did well this year. Yeah, like the rollout or
Yeah.
the platters you're serving. And although I kind of still love the idea of pulling out the silver for Super Bowl too. It sounds crazy, but I like that high low. And so maybe you have some of the, casual tablecloth, but you pull out a silver platter of football shaped sliders. It just feels I just love any reason to make anything fancy. But yeah, I like any little picks you can stick in stuff. But if you don't want to end up owning a lot of like football stuff or football shaped platters, then just how can you garnish the food itself? And so what ingredients are in it that you could pull out and put on the side, like limes or anything like that, just to give it a little touch of fancy, a little extra pizzazz.
Courtney, this has been a super fun conversation. Now I'm ready to go plan I actually on Fridays I meal plan and shop. So now I feel like I need to zhuzh it up a little bit,
Get the
which
garnishes, girl.
I gotta get the garnishes ready. I so appreciate you taking the time. So I will definitely in the show notes make sure to link to your social media pages, your different links to all of your books. You also have your website. Does that also link to your appetizer and salad website, or are they separate?
Yeah, you can find the links to those on the sidebar of Pizzazzerie. So Easy Salads and Best Appetizers are two other websites that I run with tons of recipes over there too. So yes, you can get to both of those from Pizzazzerie.
Perfect. And then we will also link all of your books. Now, your Christmas book, we still have a little while before that one comes out, but we are expecting that when?
That will be released in early fall of 2026. So 2025 is writing it and all of the fun that brings, and then design, and it'll head to print. So a little bit of a wait, but it will be worth it.
Perfect. Now, are you permitted? Will you be sharing some behind the scenes on your Instagram page of that?
I will. It'll probably be more in stories, just in that day-to-day life. That's where I share a lot of that. But yes, I will be sharing behind the scenes. I did a little bit on our first shoot. I had Ivy, my daughter, in there, but I will be getting all the kids in and sharing some behind the scenes. So stay tuned. You will see a lot of it.
So fun. Well, I will certainly be in there. You'll be sick of me by the time 2020
No.
rolls around. I live for Christmas. I'm so
Same.
excited. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat though today. I have had the best time and I can't wait to see what this year brings and 2026.
Thank you, Allie. I loved every minute of it.